They did not send humans to win. They sent them to learn their place. High above the planet, Keshanine, the Galactic Council ship floated in silence. Inside the Grand Chamber, alien leaders sat behind lifeless android bodies. Their real minds were light years away. Only their voices echoed in the cold room. President Voron stood before the massive star window. His red eyes watched the planet below. "The ground invasion is approved," he said calmly. "But humans will not be primary combat units." Several avatars nodded. "They lack psionic power. They lack natural weapons. They lack advanced combat biology." "They are eager," another voice said. "But eagerness is not strength." Humans had volunteered in high numbers. They wanted to prove themselves. The Council saw this as harmless ambition. Let them join. Let them struggle. Let them understand the gap. That was the real plan. 2 days later, on the surface of Kashawnine, Commander Elith adjusted her armor. Her third eye glowed softly. She was Leek, a master of psionic control. Beside her stood Kriv of the Kryn species. His body was covered in moving insects. Thousands of tiny living scouts. And then 3 humans. Captain Reyes, Sergeant Cole, Private Mason. They carried long rifles. Old-style chemical weapons, primitive, loud, heavy, Ely. Studied them carefully. No psychic energy, no natural armor, no visible enhancement. Just calm eyes and steady breathing. "Stay back during engagement," Elith told them. "You will provide support fire only." Reyes nodded politely. "We'll stay in position." The forest around them was strange and beautiful. Floating leaves drifted like glowing bubbles. The sky was purple. Below them, in a valley, stood the Nar detention complex. 2,000 prisoners. Heavy defenses. Guard towers. Sensor. Net's Nar soldiers were strong and disciplined. This would not be easy. Overwatch Team ready, Elith whispered into her come. Operation begins in 5 minutes. The sky suddenly tore open. 12 stealth ships decloaked at once. Troops dropped from orbit using thrusters. Energy weapons lit the air. The Nar alarms screamed. "Begin overwatch," Command ordered. Elith closed her outer eyes. Her third eye opened. Fully. Her mind reached out. She found a Nar guard in a tower. She pushed into his. Thoughts hard. The guard resisted. She pushed deeper. She forced him to step forward. Forced him to climb the railing. Forced him to jump. His body hit the ground below tower. Tower. Neutralized. Elith pulled back. Breathing hard, it took effort, heavy effort, and then a sharp crack echoed beside her. Not energy, not plasma. Gunfire. She turned. Reyes had fired far across the valley. Nar guard collapsed. Headshot clean? No. Psychic effort, no visible struggle. Just a single bullet. Then another crack. Cole fired. Another. Guard dropped. Mason fired from higher ground. Third body fell. Elith blinked. 3 guards dead in seconds. She had needed intense focus to kill one. They did it with breathing steady. And fingers. Come. The Nar soldiers below tried to organize. They ran for cover. Elith reached again. But paused. She did not need to control fully. Only nudge. A small push. A thought. Look left. The Nar soldier leaned from behind cover. Cracked. Reyes fired instantly. Down. Elith single quotes. Third eye widened. This was easier, much easier. She whispered quickly. Reyes, if I make them move slightly, can you hit them? There was no hesitation. Yes. She tried again. Another small push. Another exposed head, cracked down. Cole laughed. Softly. Oh, this works. Kriv's insects buzzed around them. He marked hidden enemies using swarm scouts. Ilith nudged humans, fired. One by one, again and again. The Bnar defense started collapsing. This was not brute force. This was coordination. This was rhythm. The assault. Teams below advanced with almost no resistance. The Gnar never understood what was happening. Every time they thought they were safe, they exposed themselves. And every human bullet ended them. Elith felt something strange. Not superiority. Not dominance. Something else. Partnership. The battle that should have lasted hours ended quickly, very quickly, when the last Gnar surrendered. Elith looked at the three humans. They were calm. Reloading. Checking equipment. No celebration. No pride. Just soldiers finishing work. Above the mean orbit. President Voran watched the battlefield reports appear. 0 Allied deaths. 40 minor injuries. Enemy neutralized. He stared at the numbers, and for the first time, he felt uncertainty. This had not gone the way he expected. Not at all. The battle was already over. But something else had just begun. On the ridge above the Gnar facility, smoke drifted slowly into the dark sky. Small fires burned in broken towers. Rescue teams moved through the compound. 2,000 prisoners were alive. 0 Allied deaths. Commander Ilith stood still. Staring at the valley below, she replayed it in her mind. The nudges, the shots, the rhythm. It had not been luck, it had been a pattern. Captain Reyes approached her quietly. Good coordination, he said. She turned to him. You adjusted very fast. He shrugged slightly. We adjust. That is all. She studied him again. No psychic aura, no biological advantage. Yet the humans had done something rare. They had made her stronger, not by replacing her ability, not by copying it, but by completing it. Kriv of the Kryn stepped closer. Insects shifting across his armor. My swarm data confirmed something unusual, he said. Elith looked at him. Exclaim. Human reaction time improved with each engagement, Kriv said calmly. They predicted exposure points before you even nudged the targets. Reyes nodded. You create opportunity, he said. We learn your timing. Elith blinked. You were studying me? Of course. There was no arrogance in his voice. Just honesty. We saw the pattern, Reyes continued. Every time you scanned, your posture changed slightly. Your breathing shifted. After 3 shots, we knew when exposure was coming. Elith felt a small shock. They had not just reacted, they had analyzed. During live combat, under pressure, without instruction, Kriv's swarm buzzed softly. Efficiency increased by 30% after initial exposure cycle. Elith looked back at the battlefield. The Gnar had not been weak. They had been trained, disciplined, prepared, but they had never faced this kind of coordination. It was not about power, it was about timing. Above the planet, on the Council flagship, President Voran stared at the tactical feed. The final numbers glowed in blue light. Enemy eliminated. Prisoners rescued. Minimal damage. He tapped the projection and isolated one moment. A Gnar commander behind heavy armor plating. Impossible, shot then a subtle psychic ripple. The commander leaned 2 inches to the side. A Hume bullet crossed 1,000 meters. Direct hit. Voran leaned back slowly. That was not coincidence. He whispered. The tactical analyst beside him responded. Negative. Human marksmen adjusted firing pattern based on psionic timing cues. Explain in simple terms, Voron demanded. They synchronized. Voron was silent. That word bothered him. Synchronization meant harmony. Harmony meant stability. But this harmony had formed in minutes. Without training. Without planning. Without political approval. He switched to another replay. Close quarters assault. Humans advancing beside. Leak units. Every time a leak forced hesitation into NAR defenders, humans filled the gap instantly. No wasted motion, no confusion. They are not competing, Voron said quietly. They are adapting. Yes, the analyst replied. An adaptation increases future performance. Voron felt something cold move through his thoughts. The humans had been included to learn humility. Instead, they had learned integration back on the surface. The celebration began slowly. Soldiers shared rations. Kriv's insects gathered in small select, glowing clusters. Humans laughed softly among themselves. Elith stood near the edge of the ridge. Reyes joined her again. You were not supposed to be the main force? She said carefully. We weren't, Reyes replied. That was not the plan. What was the plan? He asked. Elith hesitated. To observe, to participate, to learn, Reyes smiled faintly. Everyone learnt. His words were simple, but heavy. In orbit. The Council Emergency Chamber activated private meeting. No recordings, no recordings. No. Public access. Avatars lit up one by one. The operation succeeded. One delegate said, Yes, another replied, but not as predicted. The humans were effective. That is acceptable. No, another voice cut in sharply. It is concerning. The room fell quiet. President Voron stood. They multiplied the combat strength of two elite species, he said. They did. Not overpower. They amplified. A long silence followed, because everyone understood the danger. An amplifying force is harder to control than a dominant one. They were supposed to need us. Someone whispered. Voron nodded slowly. They still do. But less than yesterday. The chamber lights dimmed. On Keshanine, humans laughed under the alien stars. They did not see the concern forming in orbit. They did not know. What had shifted? They thought it was just a mission. Just teamwork. But the galaxy had noticed something, and it was not comfortable. The victory celebration ended. The worry did not. High above Keshonin, the Galactic Council chamber sealed itself once more. No public broadcast, no archives, only trusted delegates. President Voron stood at the center of the room. The battlefield footage floated in the air. Again, over and over, the same moment. A NAR soldier behind cover. A faint psychic push, a human. Rifle firing. Perfect timing, perfect cooperation. This was not a simple success, Voron said quietly. It was a demonstration. One delegate's avatar shifted slightly. Demonstration of what? Of potential, Voron replied. The tactical analysts projected numbers again. Human accuracy increased during combat. Leak psionic strain decreased by 40%. Kryn reconnaissance efficiency increased by 23%. Another pause. They made our strongest units stronger. Someone said. That should not be alarming, another replied. Is, Voron said firmly. The chamber fell silent. Explained, a delegate demanded. Voron turned toward the projection. For centuries, Our balance of power has remained stable. The League dominate mental warfare. The Kryn dominate reconnaissance. Others dominate heavy assault. Each power holds a piece. But humans do not hold a piece. He paused. They connect pieces. The weight of those words filled the chamber. They do not seek dominance, Vorin continued. They improve whatever stands beside them. A delegate spoke sharply. So we limit joint operations? And admit weakness? Another countered. If we remove them now, after this performance, it will raise questions. The analyst added calmly, human morale metrics show increased confidence, but no aggressive expansion rhetoric. They are not demanding control. They are not threatening rebellion. Not yet, someone whispered. Back on the planet. Surface. Commander Illith sat beside a small fire. Kriv Swarm rested in soft movement around. Himrius cleaned his rifle methodically. You are quieter than before. Illith said. Reyes looked up. Long day. That is not what I mean. He studied her carefully. You're thinking about the council. She did not answer immediately. They expected you to struggle, she said finally. Reyes smiled slightly. That happens a lot. And how do humans usually respond? We work harder. Elith watched the fire burn. You did more than work hard. We listened, Reyes replied. You pushed enemies into small mistakes. We filled those mistakes. Elith considered this deeply. Leak training focused on dominance. Total control. But humans did something different. They looked for openings. They thrived inside imperfect systems in orbit. The debate grew sharper. If humans perfect this coordination, a delegate said, they could dominate ground warfare. They lack fleet superiority, another argued. For now, Vorin replied quietly. Silence returned, because they all understood. Growth. Humans were young. Young species improve quickly. They adapted in minutes, the analyst continued. Future engagements may increase efficiency further. One delegate leaned forward. What if they begin training intentionally for synergy? The room grew colder. Then this becomes exponential, Vorin said. They will not just assist. They will optimize. Back on the surface, Kriv spoke. Softly. My swarm has analyzed combat logs. Reyes looked up. And future joint probability of victory increases sharply. Reyes chuckled lightly. That's good news. Kriv hesitated. For soldiers, yes. For politicians. He did not finish the sentence. Elith understood. In orbit. President Vorin dismissed the delegates slowly. One by one, avatars shut down. Before the last disconnected, a quiet question filled the chamber. What do we do? Vorin answered carefully. We observe. We encourage limited integration. We avoid full-scale combined deployments. And we never allow them unified command. The final avatar flickered. Do you believe they seek control? Vorin stared at the frozen battlefield. Imagina. That is what makes them dangerous. He shut down the chamber lights. On Kashernite, human soldiers laughed again under alien stars. They spoke about home, about simple things. They did not speak about power. They did not speak about dominance. They spoke about teamwork, about trust, and that was far more powerful than the council. Understood, the galaxy had misjudged humans once. Now it was beginning to realize it might have misjudged them completely. The council did not panic. It calculated 3 days after the victory on Kashor 9. Another private session began. The chamber lights were dim, The battlefield footage no longer played. Now the screen showed projections, future wars, future alliances, future risks. President Voron stood before the data. "We must manage this carefully," he said. "Humans cannot feel restricted. Restriction creates suspicion." A delegate nodded. "Then we spread them." "Yes," Voron replied. "We assign small human units across many fleets. No concentration. No unified structure." The tactical analyst added calmly, "Limit repeated deployment with Leak and Kryn combined forces." The room fell quiet again. Because they all knew the truth. That trio was the key. Leak, precision, Kryn, awareness. Human execution. Together, they were efficient beyond comfort. Back on Kasho 9, Commander Elif received new orders. She read them slowly. Her expression did not change, but her third eye dimmed slightly. "What is it?" Reyes asked. "Reassignment," she replied. "Leak units redistributed. Kryn units separated." "And humans?" Kriv asked softly. "Integrated across multiple sectors." Reyes smiled faintly. "Sounds like promotion." Elif looked at him carefully. "It sounds like strategy." Reyes did not argue, but he understood. Humans were not new to politics. They had seen it on their own world for centuries. Power never stays. Comfortable. Later that evening, Elif met Reyes alone near the edge of the landing zone. "You are being watched," she said quietly. Reyes chuckled. "That's normal. Not like this." He looked at her. "You think they're afraid?" Elif hesitated. "They are cautious." "That means yes." In orbit, Voron reviewed more projections. "What happens if humans eventually build fleets equal to ours?" Delegate asked. "Fleet power is irrelevant if ground dominance collapses resistance." Another replied. The analyst displayed a chilling simulation. Scenario: human-led integrated ground command. Probability of rapid planetary capture, high. Voron closed his eyes briefly. "They do not even seek leadership," he said, "which makes their influence natural. Natural power is harder to challenge than forced power." One delegate spoke carefully. "Do we slow their technological growth?" Voron's eyes sharpened. "No. That would expose fear. Instead, we praise them, reward them, keep them satisfied." Back on the planet, Kriv's swarm moved gently in the wind. "My species senses tension," he said. "Political tension." Reyes finished loading equipment onto the ship. "That happens after every big change." "Is this change big?" Kriv asked. Reyes looked toward the horizon. "Did the battle feel normal to you?" Kriv's insects went still. "No, it felt efficient." Reyes nodded. "Then, it's big." Elif watched them both. Humans were not proud. They were not arrogant. They were curious. That curiosity was dangerous, because curious species improve fast. Inside the flagship, Voron opened a private encrypted file. No council access. Only him. He typed slowly. "Human adaptability exceeds early projections. Primary strength, rapid synergy. Risk factor increases if interspecies loyalty deepens." He paused, then added one more line. "Prevent emotional bonds at command level." He closed the file, but even as he did, he knew something. It might already be too late. On Kesho Newton extraction ships, prepared to depart. Elif stood near Reyes one last time. "You do not seem concerned," she said. Reyes shrugged. "We did our job." And if they limit your future cooperation, then we adapt again. Simple words, heavy meaning. The ships lifted off. The planet grew smaller beneath them. In orbit, Voron watched their departure. He whispered to himself. They were meant to learn their place. Instead, they had shown everyone else theirs. And the council was still deciding how to respond. But deep inside, they already knew. The balance was shifting. Not through conquest, not through rebellion, but through quiet effectiveness, and that kind of power spreads. The next battle was not supposed to matter. It was a small operation. Remote mining colony. Minor insurgent force. Routine deployment. Humans were assigned, again. But this time, they were separated. No full leak unit. No full Kryn unit. Just fragments. One human squad paired with 2 leak officers. Another squad paired with a small Kryn recon team. The council wanted proof. Proof that Kashernine had been luck. Proof that synergy required rare conditions. Proof that humans alone were average. The battlefield proved something else. Commander Elith was deployed again. Different planet. Different enemies. Same humans. Captain Reyes, Sergeant Cole, Private Mason. The mission began quietly. Enemy forces were entrenched in canyon terrain. Hard cover, narrow paths. Heavy resistance expected. Elith reached out with her mind again. She felt resistance. She nudged a soldier behind rock cover. He shifted slightly. A rifle cracked. Down. Another nudge. Another shot. Kriv's reduced swarm marked hidden positions. The humans moved like water. Adjusting angles. Changing elevation. They did not need full Kryn support. They adapted with partial information. Within minutes, the resistance began to collapse, not from overwhelming force, but from precision. Elith noticed something new. The humans anticipated her mental pushes. They fired even before exposure fully happened. Their learning had improved. Faster reaction. Better timing. The gap between thought and action had shrunk. After the battle, casualty reports came in. Again, minimal losses. Again, high efficiency. But this time, the leak and Kryn units were incomplete. And humans still amplified what was present. In orbit, the council watched the second report. Silence filled the chamber. They function without full synergy, one delegate said. They create partial synergy. That increases risk, another replied. The analysts projected growth curves. Human adaptability rising steadily. Cross-species coordination improving with every mission. They are not plateauing, the analyst confirmed. They are accelerating. President Voron stared at the numbers. They learn from every deployment. Yes, they improve faster than our projection models. Yes. And morale? Stable, cooperative, loyal. That last word troubled him. Loyalty built bonds. Bonds built trust. Trust built unity. Unity built power. Back on the ground, Reyes spoke quietly to Elith. You feel it too, don't you? She looked at him carefully. Feel what? The way the others look at us now? She paused. Leak officers had been distant before. Now, they were respectful. Kryn scouts had once kept separation. Now they shared tactical ideas freely. You changed something, Elith admitted. Reyes shook his head. No. We just showed up. That is exactly what changed it, she replied. In orbit, the political tension grew sharper. We cannot contain this quietly forever, a delegate said. If humans realize their influence, they do not seek influence, Voron interrupted. Not yet. Not yet. Another delegate asked. Voron stared at the projection again. That is the most dangerous phrase in politics. He zoomed in on the data. Projected 5-year scenario. Integrated Human Command Officer leading Joint Task Force. Victory rate skyrocketing. Projected 10-year scenarios. Human-led training programs. Full interspecies tactical doctrine, rewritten. One final projection. Unified coalition under integrated command. The system stopped calculating again. Simulation unstable. Voron felt something heavy settle in his chest. They are not conquering, he whispered. They are connecting. And connection was stronger than fear. Back on the transport ship, Elif stood near the viewing port. Star stretched across space. Reyes joined her. You ever think about what happens next? He asked. She studied him. You mean politically? He smiled faintly. Everything is political. She considered that carefully. Yes, she said quietly. I think about it, and they cannot ignore you anymore. Reyes looked back at the stars. We're not trying to be noticed. That is why you are. The ship entered warp. The stars bent into lines of light, and somewhere in orbit, President Voron realized something clear. They had tried to humble humanity. Instead, they had revealed humanity. And now, the galaxy had to decide whether to accept the change or fear it. The third operation was never meant to fail. It was planned with perfect numbers, perfect timing, perfect balance. 3 species, full coordination, test conditions. But the galaxy does not move by numbers. It moves by moments. And this moment would not belong to the Council. It would belong to humanity. The target was larger than before. A fortified war complex. Heavy defense. Deep bunkers. Anti-air systems. It was meant to be difficult. Controlled difficulty. President Voron watched from orbit. He had ordered full observation. Every movement recorded. Every signal traced. He told himself this was standard oversight. But deep inside, he was watching for something else. Proof. Proof that humans still needed control. Proof that limits existed. On the ground, Commander Elith prepared again. Captain Reyes stood beside her. Kryn's specialist Kriv adjusted his recon swarm. Everything felt different. Not tense. Focused. The assault began. Dropships streaked through the sky. Ground forces advanced. Enemy artillery opened fire. Explosions shook the battlefield. Smoke swallowed the horizon. This time the enemy was smarter. They jammed communication. They blocked psionic frequency bands. They scattered interference pulses that disrupted Kryn swarm signals. Coordination began to crack. Leak mental pushes failed. Kryn recon markers vanished. Confusion spread. Voron leaned forward. There, he whispered. Stress fracture? This was the moment. Without synergy, they would falter. But the humans did not falter. They adapted. Fast. Rhea switched to manual hand signals. Old Earth tactics. Simple. Clear, direct. He pulled Elith closer. Don't push hard, he said. Just whisper. We'll read it. She adjusted. Instead of full exposure nudges, she sent emotional hints. Fear, doubt, curiosity. Humans learned to read subtle behavior shifts. A shoulder twitch, a hesitation, a breath intake. Kriv changed his swarm formation. Instead of long-range mapping, he deployed short-range scouts. Visual confirmation only. Slower, safer, less vulnerable to jamming. Human squads spread out. Small units. Independent. Self-directed. They did not wait for perfect coordination. They built new coordination on the move. Enemy units tried to exploit the confusion. But every time they pushed, a human team adjusted, flanked, moved, struck. Even without full psionic control, even without full recon, they functioned. Not perfect, but unstoppable. Veron's tactical screen flickered. Enemy defense lines collapsing. Artillery silenced. Bunker doors breached. Projected casualty rate, minimal. Again, the analysts were silent. Because there was nothing left to debate. This was not about synergy anymore. This was about resilience. About adaptability. About a species that did not require perfect conditions. On the battlefield, Elif felt something shift inside her. For the first time, she was not leading. She was part of something larger. The humans did not follow her mental pushes. They anticipated. They flowed around them, like water around stone. Reyes moved through fire and smoke. He pulled a wounded Kryn soldier behind cover. Henry from another squad dragged a leak officer out of open fire. No hesitation. No hierarchy. Just action. Just loyalty. And suddenly, Elif understood. This was why they were dangerous. Not because they amplified others. Not because they killed efficiently. But because they bonded. Across species, across instinct, across history. The enemy collapsed within hours. The complex fell. No mass casualties. No catastrophic loss. Just another victory. But this victory felt heavier. Back aboard the flagship, the council chamber was quiet again. President Voron stood alone after the meeting ended. No more debates. No more denial. The data was undeniable. Human integration increased mission success regardless of interference. Human morale stabilized other species. Human adaptability filled tactical gaps faster than models could predict. He opened his private log. The file where he had written months ago, "Humanity dangerous. Monitor closely." He read it. Then slowly he deleted the word dangerous and replaced it, "Humanity transformative." He leaned back. For the first time he did not feel fear. He felt inevitability. Back on the transport ship, Reyes stood at the viewport again. Stars stretched endlessly. Elif joined him. "They are watching you," she said quietly. Reyes smiled slightly. "We know. And that doesn't worry you?" He shook his head. "No, why?" "Because we're not trying to rule the galaxy?" He looked at her. "We're trying to survive it." Silence settled between them. Peaceful. Strong. The galaxy had tried to teach humans their place. Instead, humans had shown the galaxy its future. Not domination. Not conquest. But cooperation. The council would adapt. Or it would be left behind. Because humanity was not a weapon, not a tool, not a mistake. Humanity was the multiplier, and the galaxy would never be the same again.